In what ways did your parents completely ruin you? Imagine waking up, not in a soft, comforting bed, but dangling upside down like a bat from cold metal bars, your blood pounding so hard in your head you think your eyes might explode. This isn't a nightmare, this was my reality at 9 years old, because my parents, my own parents, believed gravity was poisoning our brains. They had joined this group. A cult, really, that taught normal sleep pulled toxins straight into your skull. The leader, a charismatic conman, claimed humans were meant to hang like our ancient ancestors who lived in trees. One night, after their first meeting, they came home with construction equipment. The drilling and hammering went on all night as they installed heavy, industrial-strength bars across our bedroom ceilings. Dad, with a terrifying fervor, tested each one by hanging himself, timing how long it took for his face to turn a mottled purple before he declared them strong enough. That first night was sheer, unadulterated torture. They showed us how to hook our knees over the bars, crossing our ankles for security. My little brother, barely old enough to understand, just cried until he threw up, a truly horrifying sight, watching it come out upside down. Mom, without a trace of remorse, simply cleaned it up and rehung him, murmuring about our bodies needing time to remember their natural position. My head throbbed, my vision pulsed with red, and I swore my eyeballs would burst. But there was no escape. They padlocked our door and removed our regular beds. We had no choice but to hang. After a week, a grim sort of routine settled in. We learned to sleep in short, desperate bursts before the headaches became unbearable. But it wasn't enough for Mom. She decided we weren't hanging long enough. Soon, she installed timer locks on our knee hooks, brutal devices that wouldn't release for a full 8 hours. Bathroom breaks? Too bad. We were given adult diapers because, as she coldly explained, our ancestors didn't climb down from trees for every little thing. My sister, always prone to nosebleeds, started having them constantly from the relentless pressure. Dad, ever the enabler, just dismissed it as toxins leaving her brain. School became an impossible blur of exhaustion. We'd fall asleep at our desks, earning concerned calls home from the nurse about the rope burns on our legs and the burst blood vessels in our eyes. Mom, outraged, withdrew us for homeschooling, declaring that traditional education was poisoning us with right-side-up thinking. She hung bars in every single room so we could practice proper positioning all day. Even meals happened upside down, with special straws and tubes to prevent us from choking. The world warped around us, a constant, dizzying inversion. One night, desperate for even a moment of flat ground, I tried to sleep on the floor. But Dad, ever vigilant, had installed motion sensors. Alarms screamed, piercing the oppressive silence, until they found me. My punishment was swift and brutal, zip ties instead of timer locks. They cut off circulation, and my feet turned a horrifying blue. They only cut me down when I started convulsing, Mom calmly declaring it a gravity detox seizure, before rehanging me with slightly looser ties. It felt like I was losing my mind, my body, my very self. My brother, always clever, figured out he could unhook one leg at a time, rotating to prevent the worst of the pain. But Mom caught him. Her solution? Stronger treatment. She ordered special boots that locked onto the bars, unremovable without a key. They were so heavy, so unforgiving, they stretched our knee joints backward. He screamed for hours, his voice eventually giving out. Then, they got boots for all of us. The group leader himself visited, checking our progress. He, with a chilling smile, said we weren't inverting young enough. He had a newborn daughter, he boasted, who'd been hanging since birth and had never experienced gravity poisoning. Without a word, Mom got pregnant immediately, determined to prove she could raise a perfectly inverted baby. She hung upside down her entire pregnancy. When my new sister was born, a tiny bar was hung in her crib with special harnesses. She never learned to crawl normally, she just swung bar to bar, exactly as they wanted. Then, one day, I found Dad's laptop open to the group's private forum. What I saw shattered any remaining illusion of their twisted healing. The leader wasn't just preaching, he was selling our progress photos to medical fetish sites. Hundreds of pictures of us, unconscious, bleeding, crying. Members paid extra for videos of our detox seizures. The money, it turned out, was building a compound where families could live, fully inverted. Dad had already put down a deposit. By the way, if you're still with me, and I wouldn't blame you if you needed a break after all that, make sure to hit that subscribe button below. More unbelievable stories, and the truth behind this one, are coming. I printed everything, every damning photo and forum post, and hid it inside my gravity boot. But before I could use it, Mom announced we were moving to the compound next week. She'd sold our house, a final, chilling act of commitment. The new place, she proudly showed us, had no regular floors, just bars at different heights. Bathrooms were holes in the ceiling. Kitchen appliances hung upside down. She described it like paradise. My stomach dropped, the world spinning even more violently. That night, fear fueling my desperate hands, I cut through my bootstraps with a stolen knife. My legs, deformed from months of hanging, wouldn't hold me, but I crawled. Crawled to my sister's room. She was only 6, but she understood. She helped me cut the others free. We made it to the front door before Dad heard us. He came swinging across the ceiling bars like some nightmare acrobat, faster than we could crawl with our ruined legs. He grabbed my brother first, rehanging him by his ankles with rope. Then my older sister, using zip ties so tight she couldn't even scream. My baby sister, bless her heart, tried to swing away on her tiny arms, but Mom caught her, locking her into a special full-body harness. I made it outside, dragging myself across the lawn toward the street, leaving blood trails where the boots had rubbed my skin raw. Then I heard Mom's voice, sickeningly sweet, from behind me. "Sweetheart, you can't even walk anymore. Your body knows where it belongs." I looked back, and there they stood, Mom and Dad, standing normally, casually, like their legs worked fine, like they'd never hung upside down at all. A surge of pure, horrifying realization hit me. They were faking it. All of it. Dad picked me up, effortlessly, carrying me back inside. As he locked my new boots onto the bar, tighter than ever before, Mom smiled. "The leader's doctors are coming tomorrow to make the inversion permanent. Just a small surgery on your inner ear, so you'll never want to be right side up again." My heart seized. Permanent. My voice was a broken croak from screaming, unable to warn my whimpering brother. The house grew quiet, save for my parents' excited murmurs downstairs about tomorrow's big day. Hours later, blood still pounding in my ears, my vision tunneling at the edges, I felt something strange against my ankle inside the boot. My fingers, numb and clumsy, barely reached it. A small piece of paper. A business card. Twisting it toward the moonlight, I saw writing on the back, "Call if you need help." And a phone number. The younger assistant from earlier, the nervous one, must have slipped it in. I couldn't write it down, so I repeated it, over and over, until those 7 digits became the only thing in my world. 5554321. Dad did his regular 2 a.m. check, shining his flashlight in my face, making sure the boots were tight. I pressed the card flat against my palm, hidden from his view. He grunted, "Good," and moved on. By dawn, my legs below the knees were completely numb, a strange mercy. Mom downstairs, on the phone, bubbled with joy about the upcoming medical procedure. My older sister, managing to twist enough to see me, mouthed, "Help us." I nodded, a tiny movement, hoping she understood. Mom came up around 8 with thick, gross protein shakes, holding them to our mouths. "The doctors would be here at noon," she said. We needed to be properly nourished. I started coughing, faking a choke. Mom had to lower me slightly to pat my back. That was my chance. I let the business card drop, praying it would fall behind the dresser, somewhere it might be found later. She rehung me, even tighter. Then Dad came, with consent forms. He made us practice signing our names upside down. My signature was a shaky scribble, my vision blurry from the blood. He beamed. Proof, he said, that we desperately needed the surgery to fix us. The morning dragged. Then, a white van pulled up outside. The younger assistant, looking even more nervous, got out. Then an older man with a medical bag. My stomach clenched. This was it. As they entered my room, the assistant looked up. I mouthed, "Please help." He paused for a fraction of a second, just a flicker of recognition, before following the older doctor. The lead doctor started examining my sister. He asked Dad about liability and medical power of attorney. Dad got defensive, loudly proclaiming this was alternative medicine. The younger assistant came to me with a blood pressure cuff. As he leaned in, I grabbed his wrist and squeezed, hard. He saw the terror in my eyes. "I need to check your blood pressure in private," he whispered, without distractions. Dad rolled his eyes, but stepped into the hall. The assistant leaned close. "What they're doing is illegal," he whispered, fast. "I already called someone this morning. Fake a seizure in exactly 5 minutes." Then he left to stall. I started breathing faster, making my heart race. The shaking started, then panic took over, making it real. My eyes rolled back. My body convulsed. I bit down on my tongue, tasting blood. The lead doctor rushed in. "We can't do any procedure without hospital clearance," he told Dad, "for her pre-existing condition." Dad yelled. Mom came running, screaming about the sold house. The doctor just shook his head, talking about liability. The assistant, pulling out his phone, suggested calling 911 for an ambulance, to make it official. Before my parents could react, he was on the phone, giving our address, declaring it urgent. Within 10 minutes, sirens wailed down our street. 2 EMTs, a woman and a man, came up the stairs. The woman took one look at me, hanging there, and the rope burns on my legs. Her expression, I'll never forget it. She asked Dad to explain his therapeutic equipment. He launched into his speech about gravity poisoning. The male EMT wrote. The woman shone a light in my eyes. "Do you feel safe?" she asked, directly. When Dad tried to answer for me, she held up her hand. "I need to hear from the patient." I shook my head, "No." She nodded to her partner. "We have to take her down to transport her safely," she said. Dad argued, but they pulled bolt cutters from their bag and began unlocking my boots. As they lowered me, my legs buckled. I collapsed into the woman's arms. "Help my siblings," I whispered into her ear. She squeezed my hand. "We're mandatory reporters. This will be handled." They strapped me onto the stretcher, carrying me downstairs as Mom screamed about parental rights. The male EMT calmly told her she could follow in her car, but not in the ambulance. Once inside, the doors closed, and the sirens blared. The woman sat next to me. "You're safe now," she said. I told them everything, a flood of words, the bars, the compound, the photos being sold online. She wrote it all down. The man radioed ahead to the hospital. She held my hand, telling me I'd done the right thing. They wheeled me into the blinding lights of the ER. Nurses moved quickly, using words like mandatory reporter and suspected abuse. Dr. Derek Rosen, a kind-faced doctor, examined my legs. He moved each joint slowly, and I winced when he bent my knees, stiff from being locked straight for so long. He frowned when I couldn't feel anything below them. He checked my eyes, and the burst blood vessels behind my ears. His hands were gentle, but his jaw tightened with each injury he found. He asked if there were other kids at home. I nodded, telling him about my 4 siblings, still hanging. He stopped, looked at a nurse, who immediately picked up the phone. The nurse came back with a camera, documenting every bruise, every rope burn, every raw spot from the boots. Dr. Rosen called social services and security. Then, turning back to me, he said, "You are safe now. Your parents will not take you back." 20 minutes later, Mom's furious voice echoed down the hall. Security guards appeared outside my room, blocking her. Her face, red and enraged, screamed about alternative medicine and government interference. The nurse held my hand as Mom's shouts about lawsuits and kidnapping filled the emergency room. After security finally got Mom to the waiting room, a woman with gray hair and kind eyes, a hospital social worker, came in. She pulled a chair close and asked me to tell her everything. The bars, the timer locks, the heavy boots, the planned surgery to mess with our inner ears. She wrote it all down, nodding, unflappable. An hour later, Lori Pearson from CPS and Detective Dexter Bradshaw arrived. They asked me to repeat my story, from when my parents joined the group. I gave them the compound address Dad had written down, the one we were supposed to move to. Lori promised they were getting an emergency order to check on my siblings immediately. Detective Bradshaw asked about the photos. I described the forum, the prices, the leader's compound. I even remembered the medical equipment company name, Gravity Free Solutions. And the website address. Dr. Rosen returned with X-ray results, stretched ligaments in my knees, compressed nerves in my legs. Months of physical therapy, he said, but I was young, I should heal. Lori, checking her phone, finally smiled. The judge signed the order. Police are heading to your house right now. My siblings would be brought to the hospital, too. Detective Bradshaw asked if I'd talk to more investigators. Yes, I said. I want the leader arrested. FBI, he explained, would likely get involved. The nurse brought juice and crackers. My first right-side-up food in months. I had to eat slowly, my stomach unused to gravity pulling food down the correct way. Lori stayed with me, talking about foster families, until, around 7 p.m., she returned. All my siblings were out of the house, here for medical checks. My little brother was 2 floors down, getting 4 fluids. The baby was in pediatrics. My older sister had bad rope burns. My younger sister, X-rays for her spine. But they were all safe. Nobody was going back. Detective Bradshaw showed up an hour later, looking tired. They'd searched the house, found everything I'd described, and more. The bars, some with blood. Dad's computer, hundreds of pictures. My parents were arrested at the house, charged with child abuse and endangerment. Mom had screamed about her rights, Dad about gravity poisoning. The officers didn't care. They were in jail. The next morning, a court woman explained we were in protective custody. No going home, no parents near us. CPS would find foster homes, trying to keep us together. I mentioned Mom's sister, 2 states away. She wrote down the name. Later, they moved me to a child advocacy center, where a kind woman recorded my story, letting me stop whenever I needed. It took 3 hours to tell everything. The next afternoon, all my siblings were brought to a big room at the hospital. My little brother could barely walk, using a walker, his legs bent weirdly. But when he saw me, he smiled, a real smile, for the first time in forever. My older sister had bandages on her wrists. My younger sister rubbed her aching back. The baby just sat there, not understanding. We hugged, careful of each other's injuries. A physical therapist explained months of hanging had weakened some muscles, tightened others. Compressed spines, stretched knees. She showed us gentle exercises. Months of therapy, she said, but kids' bodies could heal. Detective Bradshaw visited a few days later. The cult leader was arrested at his compound, along with the doctors. FBI was taking over. They'd found other families, other kids, hanging from bars. They were being rescued, too. A week later, Beth Staley, a victim advocate, started meeting with me. There would be hearings, maybe a trial. Scary, but important. My testimony was crucial. 2 weeks passed before we saw Mom and Dad at the CPS office, supervised. Mom looked smaller, Dad's face puffy. They blamed us. Said we'd ruined everything. Neither apologized. The social worker ended the visit after 20 minutes when Mom started yelling. That visit sealed it. They really believed the crazy stuff, or at least would never admit they were wrong. 3 days before the hearing, the prosecutor met with me. Photos and documents spread across the table. Physical evidence was strong. My testimony, my siblings' statements. My parents' lawyers were already talking plea deals. 5 to 7 years. She prepared me for questions. Tomorrow, I'd tell the judge. The morning of the hearing, my hands shook. Beth walked me through the metal detectors. The courtroom was small, paneled in wood. Mom and Dad were there, staring at me. The bailiff told them to face forward. I sat, the prosecutor reminding me to speak clearly. The judge, an older woman with gray hair, looked at me over her glasses. I promised to tell the truth. I described the bars, the boots, the forced inversion. The compound. The judge wrote notes, sometimes asking me to repeat. Mom's lawyer asked if I misunderstood their efforts for our health. There was no misunderstanding, I said, my voice steady, when your legs don't work anymore. The judge asked to see the photos of our injuries. Her face hardened with each one. After 2 hours, she'd heard enough. The trial would move forward. The no-contact order remained. 3 days later, Lori drove us to meet our foster family. The Hoopers. A regular 2-story house with a big backyard and a normal swing set. Cheryl Hooper greeted us with fresh-baked cookies, no forced hugs. She showed us our bedrooms, with regular beds and soft blankets. You can sleep however feels comfortable, she said. Nobody will make you do anything weird. Jean Hooper, tall with a beard, spoke quietly, as if understanding our fear of men. My little brother hid behind me, but Jean just smiled. That first night, I kept waking up, expecting to be hanging. The bed felt too soft, too wrong. Cheryl found me sitting on the floor at 3 a.m. and just brought me a pillow, no questions asked. Over the next few days, Jean started helping my little brother with physical therapy, doing the exercises alongside him on the floor to make it less scary. One day, Jean mentioned he'd been hurt as a kid, too, and knew how hard it was to trust adults. My brother started opening up after that, even laughing. 3 weeks into living with the Hoopers, I had my first real panic attack. Lying in bed, I suddenly couldn't breathe, felt like I was falling even though I wasn't moving. My body expected to be upside down. The therapist taught me to count things I could see and touch to stay grounded. Healing wasn't a straight line. That same week, Detective Bradshaw called. Federal agents had raided the cult leader's compound, based on our case. Dozens of families, kids hanging from bars. It was all over the news, but our names were secret. Seeing footage of other kids being rescued, it hit me, we weren't alone. Lori brought us letters from some of those kids, thanking us for speaking up. One girl had hung for 3 years. Another boy's parents had fled. Reading their words, all the scary court stuff felt worth it. The prosecutor called, trial set for 2 months, but plea deals were being discussed. 5 to 7 years. Part of me wanted them to get longer, but mostly, I just didn't want to testify again. Meanwhile, my baby sister was making amazing progress. She'd never walked normally. The physical therapist worked with her every day. One afternoon, she took 5 steps across the living room without holding on. Everyone cried, even Jean and Cheryl. Watching her learn to walk like a regular kid, everything we went through felt less permanent. A month after moving in, I went back to school. An IEP, extra time for assignments, leaving class if panic struck. The other kids didn't know my story, which was exactly what I wanted. For a few hours each day, I could just be a normal student. Detective Bradshaw visited again. The medical equipment company was cooperating, horrified their products were used to hurt kids. They were looking for other families. 4 months passed. The prosecutor finally called about my parents' case. I was doing homework. Cheryl handed me the phone. Plea deals, that morning. 5 years minimum in prison. They'd lose all parental rights, forever. No trial. No testifying. My hands shook as I hung up and told my siblings. My little brother jumped up and hugged me so hard we fell back onto the couch. My older sister just nodded, over and over. That night at dinner, Cheryl cleared her throat. She and Jean asked if we'd like to stay with them permanently. Even think about adoption someday. My siblings all said yes immediately. But the word, parents, stuck in my throat. It felt too big. I asked for time. They said that was fine, no rush. The next week, in family therapy, we sat in a circle. The therapist asked us to share one thing we'd never been allowed to say. My older sister started talking about the nosebleeds, how scared she was, wiping blood off the floor before Mom saw it. Her voice cracked, tears streaming. We all moved closer, held her as she sobbed. 2 days later, Detective Bradshaw called with news that made the local paper's front page. The cult leader was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for child exploitation and abuse. Seeing his mug shot on TV, with "convicted" underneath, something loosened in my chest. A knot coming undone. 6 months after our escape, I realized I'd slept through the whole night without waking in panic, thinking I was upside down. My legs still hurt sometimes, but the therapist said it was normal nerve regeneration. A week later, at Sunday dinner, we talked about adoption again. This time, I said yes, along with everyone else. Jean was so excited he knocked over his water glass, hugging us all. My little brother, looking at the huge chocolate cake Cheryl brought out, quipped, "At least this family's weird thing is just eating too much dessert instead of hanging from the ceiling." Everyone roared with laughter, Jean snorting milk out his nose. The adoption was finalized on a Tuesday. We wore our nicest clothes. The same judge who signed our emergency removal order 8 months earlier now signed the papers, making us officially Hoopers. She smiled, said we deserved every bit of happiness. Back home, Cheryl and Jean said they understood if calling them Mom and Dad felt wrong. We could use their first names. It felt right. My baby sister turned 3 that spring. Zero memory of the bars or boots. She thought it was just a weird game her siblings wouldn't play when she tried to hang from the monkey bars at the park. Watching her run around like any normal kid, without fear, made everything we went through worth it. A year after our escape, I stood at a podium in a conference room full of CPS workers. My voice shook as I explained how one person, believing me, had saved 7 lives, including a baby who'd never known normal gravity. I showed them pictures of the rope burns, explained what to look for in cult abuse cases. Several people cried, but I kept going. They needed to know these things happened. After my speech, a dozen caseworkers thanked me, saying they'd started investigating similar cases. One woman from Oregon had just removed 4 kids from a family doing almost the exact same thing. Back home that night, we had pizza and movies, our Friday ritual. My little brother fell asleep on Jean's shoulder. My older sister painted the baby's nails. Cheryl made popcorn, brought out 5 different kinds of candy, saying we'd missed too many years of junk food. Looking around at my siblings, safe and happy in a normal living room, my chest felt full in a way I couldn't explain. The prosecutor called the next week. Mom and Dad were transferred to separate prisons, 400 miles apart. No parole for at least 4 years. The FBI had shut down 3 more compounds, rescuing 47 kids total, based on evidence from our case. My older sister started talking about becoming a social worker. I started thinking about law school. Spring came. My older sister spent weeks on her college application essay, describing the bars, the boots, how Lori saved us. The admissions committee at the state university called her personally, offered her a full scholarship. She cried so hard she could barely say yes, but she did, confirming she wanted to major in social work. That summer, Jean built us a treehouse in the backyard. Not the weird kind with bars, but a normal one, with walls and a floor. We handed him nails, held boards steady. My little brother painted it blue, his favorite color now that he could see colors right side up again. We spent evenings up there, playing board games, eating sandwiches, looking at the stars through the skylight Jean had cut. The prosecutor called one afternoon. The fake doctors were sentenced. The main one, license revoked, 2 years in prison. The younger assistant, who'd helped me that day, testified against his partner and got a lighter sentence. He sent me a letter through the prosecutor, apologizing for not acting sooner, saying my fake seizure had given him the courage to finally call for help. Reading his apology, something tight in my chest loosened a bit more. 2 years after our rescue, we looked like any other kids. My little brother tried out for basketball, made junior varsity, even with the doctor's predictions of permanent joint damage. He practiced free throws every night until his knees ached, never complained. During games, I watched him run up and down the court, no sign of the boy who couldn't walk. My baby sister had no memory of hanging. She ran around the playground like any normal 5-year-old, even hung from the monkey bars for fun, which still made us nervous. Senior year, I applied to the pre-law program at the state university. My personal statement? About sitting in that courtroom, watching the prosecutor fight for us, knowing I wanted to do that for other kids someday. Beth wrote my recommendation letter, calling me one of the bravest people she'd ever met. The acceptance letter came in March. Jean framed it. Graduation day. Hot and sunny. I walked across the stage, heard Cheryl screaming my name, Jean blasting an air horn. My siblings held up glitter-covered signs, our hero. My little brother's sign had a drawing of me in a superhero cape. That night, Cheryl made a huge dinner. We sat around the table, sharing what we wanted to do with our lives. My older sister talked about her CPS internship. My little brother, a coach. My baby sister, a teacher. Nobody brought up what happened before, because we'd learned we were more than just survivors of something terrible. 5 years after that night, when Mom announced the surgery that would have destroyed us forever, I sat in my law school library, studying criminal procedure. My phone buzzed with a picture from my little brother, college basketball, winning shot. My older sister, a social worker in the same office where Lori used to work. My baby sister, 12, still clueless about why her siblings got weird about sleepovers sometimes. Cheryl and Jean had officially adopted us 3 years ago, though we still called them by their first names out of habit. We survived everything they did to us and came out the other side as a real family that chose each other. This journey, it changed everything. It made me wonder, what's one moment in your life that completely reshaped who you are, or how you view the world? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, I'd really love to know.